preview. It's definitely going to be a robust session. We are at capacity, so we have 3,600 people expected to attend. And for those who may not have been able to register, there is a wait list that I will put in the chat right now. We do anticipate for there to be some room. What I would not recommend, what tends to happen, is to say, well, I booked my flight, I booked my hotel, I'm just going to give it a shot. Because the likelihood of on-site registrations are incredibly low. So appreciate the enthusiasm. Please do not show up if you're not registered, and we will likely also have an opportunity for you to join the plenaries virtually, only the plenaries, not the workshop sessions, so you don't have to miss out on the content. A great feature of this conference, it's going to be great, it's going to be amazing. If you haven't checked out the workshops, definitely check them out. They are first come, first serve. So just because you have it on your registration that you want to attend this session does not mean a chair is being held just for you. So I want to emphasize that. But one thing to really be mindful of, and I think is very applicable for this meeting today, is that on Thursday from 11:45 to 1:15 p.m., there will be state networking and coalition building. And so that is where everyone from the state of Maryland who is registered, and there is over 350 of you all. I think you all are one of the second largest groups outside of California that's attending, but you'll have the opportunity to really connect with others that are doing this work. It will be a facilitated conversation. Some of you whom are on this call have been asked. I know I've asked Ellie and she's agreed, so you'll at least have a friendly face. And it's really a great opportunity to raise some of the challenges that you all have been thinking about already as a coalition and get some feedback, get some ideas, do some planning for what are some next steps in the movement. And so that is super high level overview of the conference. I will also just throw in the chat the agenda at a glance. So if you have questions of like what's going to be happening here, you can ask me. And now I'm going to go, Ellie, if it's okay, updates from the national level.
Yeah. And we'll take questions about everything at the end.
Yep, sounds good. All right, so just a little bit of like what's happening at the national level. Lots is happening at the national level. One thing that I want to emphasize is that Full Service Community Schools grant is going to be released very, very soon. It is going to look very similar in terms of priorities and indicators because the way they were made in rules, so it's incredibly difficult to change them at this point. What we know is that there will be a large emphasis on moving the indicators. And so logic models are highly, highly recommended with your submission, and not just and I guess if I could give some encouragement, do it backwards. Start with your vision, start with the indicators that you'll move and work backwards. Because we know there's going to be a heavy emphasis on that, as well as a plan for what sustainability should and could look like. And so as you all are preparing, I know it was a very quick turnaround last year. We're anticipating another quick turnaround, so maybe 60 days from once it's announced. So I would highly recommend start thinking about what that looks like, whether it's state scaling, whether it's multiple districts, whether it's a capacity building, which is only focused on one district. And also just kind of priorities there. It will likely be divided again between rural and suburban and urban. So that is some things that's happening at the national level. Also, I will say, if you are not already familiar, a group of folks at the national level have come together called the Community Schools Task Force and has released a lot of new information, not necessarily new in concept, but new in presentation. And there's been a lot of consensus on what this work looks like. And so I'll share some of those resources as well as you all are doing this work. And so I am happy to take questions now.
And let me just add that as soon as the RFP is released, we'll schedule some webinars and technical assistance opportunities, as I'm sure will the coalition. We'll do kind of like a 101 overview. Sounds like it might be helpful for us to do some work on logic models, which we have done in the past. We have some expertise on, and we will offer once again the sort of one-on-one technical assistance opportunities for those who are applying. So stay tuned for all of that. But we don't want to get ahead of ourselves because we want to see any changes that might have occurred in the RFP and priorities, et cetera, before we jump to starting to get people in these technical assistance opportunities. Also, we'd love to hear from those who applied but did not receive funding this year. We know there was several grants from Maryland, but who might have received feedback on their grants for ways that we can provide additional technical assistance, given that those points of feedback. So.
And one thing I'd also add, Ellie's absolutely correct. Once it is released and once we have time to do a quick scan of what's different, the National Coalition will be doing a series of webinars similar to last year. And the way we're approaching it is Tuesdays are going to be based on the content. So it's likely going to be about 5 webinars, or actually 10, but Tuesdays are going to be focused on the content and the concept, and then Thursdays are going to work more as group sessions to think through how can you approach this. So think of it as group coaching, but definitely take Ellie up on her offer for the individual coaching. As much support, we just want to offer as much support as possible to make sure we have high quality applications that are submitted.
So questions for Jolene. You can either come off mute or you can drop them in the chat. I'm going to give my nice teacherly pregnant pause here for people to think through a little bit. Oh, I know there's got to be at least one question.
One question I get in regards to the conference is often about food. So it's not even content related, but lunch will be provided. There would be snacks at receptions, okay. But definitely plan for your own breakfast for those attending. We'll likely have like some light things. But yes, definitely plan for your own meal. So it doesn't have to be a heavy question. If it's a question you can ask to support with logistics, that's also perfectly okay.
I have a question. Good morning, Jolene. My name is Rockland White. I'm from Harford County Public Schools. And I wondered if moving forward when planning the conference, have we thought to maybe extend it either another day or that last day, make it a little bit longer? I know for some of the participants wanting to do some of the site visits and going into sessions, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. is a long day for a conference. And then also because there are things that overlap, like some of the site visits and some of the opening sessions, people aren't able to really get as much out of it as they maybe would have liked. So have we considered maybe doing something a little bit longer so that, or maybe that 3-hour break in between the morning and afternoon sessions, maybe shortening that, especially if you're offering lunch?
Yes, so I will take that back, finding the days, because we also know a lot of folks travel on Fridays, which is why we end early. But what could it look like if it's a Tuesday through Thursday or Tuesday through Friday versus Wednesday through Friday? I know they will not start on Monday just because that's really hectic. And we recognize Monday often as a travel day, but I will definitely put that forward for the group to consider. Because it is a long day. Completely agree. Even for us. So now I have some backup to say, see, it's not just us as staff saying this. So thank you.
Anything else for Jolene while we have her? A question is, will there be any TA sessions focused on supporting districts to explore applying jointly for full service community schools? And Jolene, I'll let you answer that from the national, and I'll take that from our vantage point too.
Yeah, absolutely. From a national standpoint, the sessions on Thursday would be an opportunity to explore that. I will say if you need more direct support, we would look for the Maryland State Coalition and others to offer that. Ellie, so that's the high level answer. From national perspective, it will be loose.
Yep.
But we would
She's
hope
talking about
that that's something the
the
state
conference.
coalitions will pick up.
We would welcome districts that were looking to apply together to participate in one-on-one technical assistance with us in this next round. So what we did last time is we offered locks and windows of that folks could sign up for, and we'll do a similar kind of process as soon as we have kind of the timeline of the application process. Any other questions?
And if I
Okay.
can give a tip, if you have not yet applied, or even if you have, if you go on the website for the full service community school grants, you can see the abstracts and the applications of those who have successfully applied. And so if you're thinking, I think I might want to apply, I highly recommend just looking and viewing at some of those applications. It is a lot of work, just so you can, manage your own expectations and do a little prep in advance. And I can drop that link in the chat as well.
I will say that one of the things I noticed from the applications that were successful in the last go around, particularly those that were multiple counties, is that the rural priority, which most of our counties don't meet by the standard of the government definition, did really well in the last round. So I don't know if that means that maybe there'll be a little bit more opening for some of our less rural areas, or what, because it is a little bit tough for us just because of the way the standard is written. But we'll be digging into those successful applications and kind of giving you the themes of what put them over the top, and sharing that out when we do our initial technical assistance kind of overview workshops, as well as when we're doing generalized TA. And thank you, Jolene, for putting that link in the chat. Sorry, I've got a beagle barking in the background. Anything else before we, I'm a little trigger happy with my slides here. Anything else? Any other last minute questions? Going once? Going twice? All right, Jolene, thank you very much for joining us. We will see you, for those of us who are able to, in Philadelphia. And I definitely encourage everybody to attend the statewide session. We are thinking through what will make it work with these huge numbers of people attending. I am also just looking forward to all the workshops and exciting things that are going to be shared there. So,
and one quick thing, Ellie, I just remembered, because the idea was just approved, but on Thursday, in honor of the state breakouts, we are encouraging folks to wear a shirt that's representative of their state, as a way to, one, recognize each other, but also just as a fun thing, conversation starter. So if you are attending the conference, think about what represents Maryland for your Thursday shirt or attire.
all right, folks, there's a challenge. Oh, we see something in the chat. Yes, Sue, we definitely have a major attachment to our flag here in Maryland. So expect to see a lot of Maryland flag wear on that day. So,
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now going on to our next slide here. So I just wanted to provide some updates at the state level, and I will start a little bit with the legislative session. So there weren't a lot of huge things that happened during this legislative session that have a major impact on community schools one way or the other in terms of how the blueprint is rolling out. But I'll highlight a few things that are important that we want to, that were important things for this legislative session, and things that we want to watch going into the future legislative sessions. And I just want to also call out sort of that we have some folks on the call today that are from from Strong Schools Maryland. They are a great advocacy partner. We participate with them on the Blueprint Coalition. If you are looking to get regular information about what is happening with the Blueprint and what opportunities you have to get involved in some of the Blueprint advocacy, I recommend that you get connected with Strong Schools Maryland. Maybe one of the team members could drop a link in the chat. I also recommend that you connect with the Maryland Education Coalition, which I co-chair. I will also drop the link to that in the chat, just so that if you're looking for regular updates on the kind of full picture of the Blueprint and opportunities to get involved in advocacy, those are just two organizations. There are more that I hope that you'll consider following and connecting with. So the good news is that funding for the Blueprint was a high priority during the 2023 legislative session. As many of you may know, the Blueprint is not actually fully funded. And I think we now have funding through 2026 and going into 2027. So the basic extra money that was allocated by the House Senate and approved by the governor in the final budget kind of staves off. It doesn't add new money to the Blueprint, but it staves off. It gives us a longer runway before we are have a shortage of funding for the Blueprint. The other monies that were added this year and would impact local school districts is money for Blueprint coordinators. That was not something that was originally included in the Blueprint bill. And so there was an allocation made as part of the budget process this year. The actual bill that would have funded Blueprint coordinators did not go through, but the budget allocation did. So that's exciting. And I'm sure many school districts appreciate having those extra funds to have a dedicated staff member to the Blueprint implementation. And something else that we are following, another piece of legislation that did not actually pass, but is a very important one, and one that we're still trying to figure out all of the ins and outs of, is the neighborhood tiers or neighborhood indicators of poverty. This year, they added Medicaid to the formula, along with direct certification and farms, to figure out how to count students living in poverty and make schools eligible for the Comp Ed and for the concentration of poverty grants. So that brought on some new schools and counted some new students, but there are still questions about having to how we should count poverty in Maryland. And that neighborhood tiers and neighborhood indicators of poverty process is one that we think is very important. It's part of the AIB implementation plan for both MSDE and the AIB. And it is one that is will impact all of us in terms of what schools are eligible for the concentration of poverty grants. Other than that, not much change this legislative session. We are hoping to work with Strong Schools Maryland and all of you in the coming session in next year to put together a bill to really focus on community schools systems building. Give local districts more flexibility with their funds to do admin and support training and professional development. Build out a more robust structure at the state level with the director of community schools and an office that would support community schools. And look at some of the definitions and implementation strategies through that bill. So if you're interested in working with us on that between now and next November or December, I will drop my email in the chat. We would love to have a working group on this topic. So here, let me just drop a couple of things. I want to make sure you have the Maryland Education Coalition website, and I'm going to drop my email address right now. If you're interested in that kind of legislative working group, please, please, please let me know. The AIB is rolling. If you haven't had a chance to go visit their website, we highly encourage exploration. Every school district has their implementation plans posted there. The MSDE implementation plans and agency plans are there. All the reports are there. The AIB meetings are all posted. A brand new AIB member was appointed by the governor, Justin Robinson from Prince George's County. He's a teacher. He's the only teacher on the AIB. So that's exciting to have some new faces in those important positions. You can join me and my colleagues who are on AIB Pillar 4. Every last Thursday of the month, we are the advisory group to that pillar, and those meetings are also posted. So that's where we would discuss all the Pillar 4 related issues that are coming up in front of the AIB and others. And again, I just highly recommend going to the website. They're hiring positions. Please recommend people for those roles. We want diverse, representative of the state and of our students, people working with the AIB to fully implement the blueprint. And last, before I turn it over to you all to give us updates, I really want to ask one other thing of you all, which is if you're interested in joining the Maryland Coalition for Community Schools Steering Committee. We are still trying to figure out the full structure of this coalition. We want to have clear decision-making and membership strategies. And so we have a nice small group, but it would be nice to add a little bit more geographic diversity to that group. And so it will, if you, again, drop me an email, as my email's in the chat, we will be able to set up our next meeting soon and really kind of build out some robust structures around this coalition. And with that, I am going to turn the mic over to you all because we haven't been together for a while. There's a lot happening in Maryland. The community schools is everywhere. It feels like, and we want to hear for the next sort of little bit. We actually have now about 30 minutes before the folks from the Consortium on Community Supports joins us. So this is a really great time to hear from all of you and also to hear kind of what are some of your pain points, what are opportunities and things you might need from us as the coalition coming forward. And we'll take some good notes on this, and that will also help us in our conversations about kind of what's happening next for the Maryland Coalition for Community Schools. So I had teed up a few people, but the floor is actually open to anybody. If you just want to give me a little raised hand, if you want to share a little bit about what's happening in your neck of the woods on community schools. And if I don't see any raised hands, I'm definitely going to call on some people. So volunteering is always best, but I know there's a few people here who I can count on to share. All right. I'm gonna have to call
Ellie,
folks.
I'll jump in, Ellie.
Thank you. Go for it.
Hi, my name is Janae Tucker from Family League of Baltimore, representing Baltimore City. Lots of things happening with community schools. The first thing is we're gearing up for our biannual needs assessment. So our coordinators across the city are participating in are reviewing data and participating in focus groups and interviews to really understand the assets and the needs in their respective school communities. They'll share this information back with their school communities. And of course, this will be used to create an action plan so that they can work strategically moving forward. We're also gearing up for our annual Summer Institute. Summer Institute is a multi-day professional development experience for coordinators. This year, we have over 130 coordinators that will be training. And so we're really excited and looking forward to planning that in the coming weeks. We're also unpacking our strategic plan. This year, we met with an external consultant to really help us plan out our next few years and create a strategic plan. So now that we have a new policy that's been passed by the city schools, we're now looking to really unpack that strategic plan and do some alignment work there. And OST, we're expanding OST. And so with the expansion of community schools in Baltimore, there was a need to ensure that there was more OST for those new schools in Baltimore. We really see community schools and out of school time programming as going hand in hand. And so we're looking at leveraging some dollars and reallocating some resources to ensure that we're expanding out of school time programming for those new community schools that have come on the past 2 years. I know there's more, but Ellie, you could jump in if I missed any big pieces here in Baltimore.
I would actually just like to add that we passed a new community schools policy in Baltimore City. I sat on the group working on that. So it was an update to the one that was originally passed in 2016. And this one kind of aligns the policy to the blueprint. So if folks are interested in seeing that, I can definitely find the link to the new policy. It was passed by the board and accepted. So that is one other just sort of exciting piece of news. And I know people are thinking about having community school policies in their districts, and it might be a model for some, particularly now that it is more fully aligned to the blueprint and to the state level thinking as well. And yes, I got to attend a kickoff meeting in Howard County. It was very exciting to see all the growth and interest in community schools. So yes, definitely cheer on your fellow colleagues. Who else is willing to jump in here and give us a little update from your neck of the woods? I'm looking at my participants list for some hands. Rockland, do you want to jump in for Harford County?
Sure. So again, I am Rockland White and I am the grant specialist for Harford County, but I also support community schools. And for Harford County, we are working on a strategic plan. We have had community schools for about 4 years, but the bulk of our schools are between 1 and 2 years old. So we're really looking how we can build the capacity out for the specialist as well as district-wide, because once, since we don't have that 40 school capacity, we don't have that extra funding for management. So we're looking at how we can still be intentional about that without having that additional amount of money. And then also we're using our Merit and Leads money for a consultant to support that work while we're figuring out the budget constraints. So as far as our specialists, all of them they're former teachers and they're really strong. And they're really strong in what they're doing. We're putting a lot of great things in place. So they're getting in the community and really getting to know it, because it's a different skill set coming from a teacher in the classroom to being a community school specialist. So that's one of the things that for the first year and a half or so, we've really been working on the capacity building as far as getting into the community, learning who the partners are and how to best work with the partners and help them, and they help us as well.
And Rockland, what are anything that you might hope for in terms of things you might learn from others in the state, or things that you might want the coalition to kind of sponsor, or what are some things that you might look for from the coalition in the coming year?
So one of the things I think for my district, because like I said, it's one of the smaller districts, we have 11 community schools, and at max we're banking on probably having about 15. And so professional development seems to be one of our struggles, just because with the money going directly to the schools, having to pay for outside people to come in and speak, most of the professional development is usually done by myself or in-house. And I really want to grow and have more capacity around having outside speakers and people outside of the district and even outside of the state speaking to our community schools. What I found is it's great to have people that are local, but with the local work, some of it seems a little familiar and a little common because we're doing some of the similar work, but we want to see what the models and strategies are outside of the district and what we can bring here. So any support around professional development, guest speakers, also facilities is another need for us. So if there are any districts that have really built out community schools as far as like the health suite and different community school spaces, I would love to be able to bring our facilities person there just so they can get an idea of what an ideal community school could look like or what a community school hub can look like. Because me trying to explain it and giving like parameters and dimensions like, hey, we should have this, that, and other, it's a little bit over their head. But I think if they really could see some of what these spaces could look like and potentially how they could build them out, that would be helpful as far as our planning long-term for the facility side.
Awesome. Thank you. Those are great. And Rockland, I assume you might want to have that in a similar looking district to Harford County, because, you know, I mean, we have the 21st century schools in Baltimore City that are brand new construction and
well, that's the thing
that way.
It can be both. So some of our community schools are on the plan to be reconstructed and redesigned, and some of them completely demolished and rebuilt. So I think if we could see maybe an example of both. So if we have a 21st century school that has a community school space, and so if our community schools are on the earlier end of that building project, they could see what they can put in place when they go to make those changes. And then some of the schools who aren't on that long-term construction plan, we can look how people are being creative and how they're using their spaces more effectively.
Great. Thank you, Rockland. All right. Who else is willing to share some of their successes, how things are going, some of the things that they still need, some of the challenges? I am going to keep my, you can just jump off mute, or you can, sorry, every time I go to look at the participants list, I seem to change a slide. Or you can add to the chat. See a chat. So Jennifer McDowell at Community Schools Partners have heard from principals that there is a desire for statewide site visits to see each other implementation work. This is something that we've done in the past, and something that we could do. We could do a little bit of a community schools bus tour. Is that something that people would find exciting, be willing to participate in? Would be willing to host at their sites if we were to have a way of coming to visit you? And so I got at least a couple of yes, willing to participate in that. That's great. Yes, definitely. Yes. Okay. I think that we have a couple of things kind of bubbling up here, maybe some shared professional development, some touring to see what is happening in each other's districts. So these are things that we are noting. Who else wants to share about what's happening in that? I saw some folks from Anne Arundel County. I saw Talbot. I saw Caroline on the call. Would love to hear what everybody's thinking about. Even if you're really just at the beginning of this process, that is great. We want to be here to support your questions and provide additional resources. You aren't alone.
I'll share for Washington County. So Kim
Great.
Duncan, and we have currently 8 community schools, 5 schools in their 3rd year, 2 in their 2nd, 1 in their 1st, and 4 additional schools coming on next year. Definitely have a variety of things going on across all of the schools. A lot of focus on extended learning, family engagement, attendance initiatives. Would absolutely be interested in hearing more about how other school systems are utilizing community partners to support extended learning, just in terms of having the capacity at some of our smaller schools to meet the needs of families and be able to serve as many kids as we can in the out of school time space. Our 4 schools coming on next year include 2 middle schools, a high school, and a special education school. So kind of hearing more about what's going on across the state at those areas. Obviously, it looks different for our middle and for our secondary schools, and what we can do to better support families there. Going through the needs assessment process with our one new school in a condensed time frame. So looking forward to the results of that, and then how we can roll that out amongst our other schools. I agree with Rockland. Anything we can talk about in terms of access to space, access to partners. We just, as many of our cohorts across the state, are struggling with some transportation struggles, some nursing struggles, and just professional development, all of that. So open to any ideas and any and all resources we can get to support our schools.
Yeah, I also had the issue about alternative schools raised by a community school coordinator in Baltimore County. It's something that I brought back to the AIB for a little bit more discussion, and I need to follow up on that, because we're getting the impression that it's a little bit more difficult and has a little bit more different flavor to be a community school coordinator in an alternative school than some of the other schools. And so that is something I'm going to put as another notation. And I don't know if others have had that experience in their implementation, if there are challenges specifically for those schools. The conversation about expanded learning is one that we had understood from Tanya when she was still in her position at the state, that one of the things that was coming as a common theme across needs assessments was the need for after school and summer learning. That might be a conversation, particularly given our expertise around that, that we could host and talk about what resources are available for that, what other leverages community schools can have, and then also how to maximize the use of their community partners on that. So that's a great conversation. Wondering if any of those themes are resonating with anyone else.
I do think that is, especially here, I think supporting the community partners in growing their capacity as well to work. So it, across all areas, how we can build capacity within our school system, but then again, how we can support our partners so that they're able to have the capacity to work with the school. We currently work with 3 out of school time providers in the area. And again, I think if they had more capacity, they would want to do more as well.
That is great. I think we could definitely do some work on that. Anyone else want to chime in on that? +1, anything that Kimberly just shared, or raise a new topic that as a coalition we could work together on or share resources on?
So I'm Katie from Talbot. Flying solo, as I'm the only community school right now in the county. So there's a loose group of us Eastern Shore folk that are meeting monthly, very informally, just to kind of sort through the rural challenges that we're having and lack of resources on the shore, and just being so spread out. So I'll throw my email in the chat if anybody is on here and wants to join us. We mostly just talk challenges and wins. One of the things bubbling up for a lot of us over here, which I know is probably across the state, is shortage of healthcare workers. So that meeting the obligation of full-time staffing someone when there's not even applicants in the pool to hire. So that's something that we're just trying to be creative about, but that's an issue coming up.
Yeah, and that also you are not alone on, Katie, for sure. That might actually be something that would be of interest in the conversation with the Consortium for Coordinated Community Supports that will be doing a presentation later in this session. Because, you know, connecting to those health and mental health resources for schools will be part of their mission, and the hubs and service providers that they'll be creating and supporting should directly be able to answer some of these questions, I think, for community schools. So I'm gonna have you flag that for them when they come on, and I would love to have the opportunity to join you guys sometime if you have some room on your agenda for the coalition. We'd be happy to hear what some of those concerns are and see if there's ways that we can be supportive. So that's great. So thank you. And you know, you're there are, as we as the phase-in happens, you know, you're going to move from being not so alone to having a little bit more support. And then there's always going to be some districts that just have a small, tiny number of community schools, or there'll be a couple districts that won't have any. But for the most part, you know, we know that there'll be that their scale and scope of this is going to look different in different places. And that's one of the reasons we want to be here, is because we know, you know, it's one thing to have 150 coordinators. It's a different thing to have 10 or 2 or 1. And yet everybody needs support in the work that they're doing. So thank you for sharing, and hopefully we can connect up. Who else? I know there are more districts. I saw that Dr. Coley just joined us from Frederick County. I don't want to put you on the spot, but would you be willing to do a little update from Frederick, and also share any opportunities or kind of challenges, the things that you might be looking for from the coalition?
Hi, good morning. We are moving along in the work. It's been great working with some colleagues from Washington County and Montgomery County and Harford County. We've been sharing ideas and talking and meeting on a monthly basis, which has been fantastic and just a great way to network and to grow and learn. So I'm very, very appreciative of their help and support as I've been working through this journey. We have 4 schools right now, and next year we'll have another one, so we'll have 5. We're deep in our needs assessment right now, so really just working through those pieces and just really getting a good quality needs assessment. We had pretty good responses on our surveys, and now we're doing our focus groups and interviews. So we're just compiling all of that information and data, just kind of really sorting through what we need to do. I'm really proud of our community coordinators. They've really this year, we really talked about just building relationships, getting to know our schools. We did our asset-based assessment different. We didn't do it in the beginning. We're doing it now because we're really looking at things that we know and then looking to expand what other assets, and then that will help to fill some of the holes that we have. So they're doing a really thorough job with our needs assessment. So I'm really proud of them with that. I'm really excited with a partnership that was already started before I came on with Vision to Learn. We were able to give 157, I believe it is, glasses to students from 2 schools. We did vision screening for every student from kindergarten through 5. And so from that, we found 157 students from 2 schools that needed vision support. So that was something that's very exciting that we did here, that we're very proud of. In Frederick this year, and we're looking to hopefully expand it to some of our other schools that are that didn't get an opportunity to have that. As far as challenges, we had started trying to write our vision and all of those pieces, and I felt like we were spinning our wheels because we really didn't have a good grasp of what community schools were, and we're learning ourselves. So we're going to be doing some of that work this summer. I think also just support understanding that some of the schools, districts, and were audited. And so I think even some support and understanding that whole process and how to organize ourselves for some of that, so that when it comes to us and we're getting to that audit piece, we have our stuff ducks in a row and don't have to try to spend a lot of work trying to get all of those pieces together, that we're already pre-organized so that we're ready for that. And I think training, good suggestions for ongoing training and things that we want to do to prepare our community coordinators, that we want to do to help support our staff would be great. Just any kind of training opportunities, any new research out there or new strategies that have been found to be effective. Also, I guess what resources are in the state that we might not know about. I really would like to do something similar that we did with our vision with dental. And so are there any resources that could do screenings, full spread screenings, and being able to provide support? But any other innovative and great ideas out there for how to provide support for our families, I think is always very welcome. And I also want to tell you, Ellie, I was in Hawaii and actually met with a group that is associated with the Most Network out there. So it was fantastic to talk to them and share ideas and start a partnership with them. So that was exciting also, that I just got back from, met with them on Monday.
Yes, the Hawaii After School Network is doing similar work as we are. We always joke that I really need to do some site visits in Hawaii. Somehow work that out. So maybe we can all figure out a way to work our way to the islands to learn more about their work there. I just wanted to ask if we were to do, before you jumped on, we were talking about doing potentially some kind of bus tour that would allow people to see each other's sites as well as do a little, showing off of your own. Is that something that you think Frederick would be interested in participating in?
Sure, absolutely. I think that would be fantastic.
Awesome. And your requests for training is a common theme today. So something that we can maybe think about some topics that we could do some shared training, at least virtually. I would still love to do a Maryland Community School Conference. It is something that we had talked about with MSDE at one point until, before there was a vacancy in the community school position there. So hopefully we can pick that conversation back up again. So we could, come together all as one state and have this sharing in person and a more robust way. So we don't have to, of course, the national conference is great because we can learn from others as well. But certainly we have a lot of great things going on right here that we can come together on. So those are some things that we're thinking about. Any other plus ones and from Frederick County or other things that other places who want to share? We have about 7 minutes before our consortium on community supports, and that might have some dental resources. I mean, it might have some information about how we can more thoroughly share health and mental health resources across counties. So keep your thinking on that going.
I'd love some more. I'd love to also do some discussion about the school nurse and how different people are using that position to further healthy living and those kinds of things in the schools, and how people are being able to fulfill the requirements of them being at all of the events and those types of things. That would be an interesting topic to expand upon as well.
Great. Yeah, we did have somebody else say that even just hiring right now is so difficult and such a challenge that you know, the role of those health practitioners is really, really not clear. The guidance is not entirely there. So I appreciate that. Anyone else? We probably have the opportunity for 2 more districts to share before we move to our final presentation and close out for today. Anybody willing to jump in? I also would welcome announcements. Jennifer, I don't know if you want to do a quick announcement about this afternoon's session and anything else that might be coming up.
Sure. Thanks, Ellie. Jennifer McDowell, longtime community schools practitioner and part of a consulting collaborative called Community Schools Partners. And myself, my colleague David Osta, and Dr. Jessica Schiller from Towson University have been gathering monthly with principals across Maryland just to, something that Rockland mentioned, I believe, is that we do a lot of, where we can, professional development and supportive coordinators, but there isn't always that space or capacity to do so with administrators. So today, and hopefully every month forthcoming, we're gathering school principals just to be in relationship with one another, share best practices, ask each other questions, and refine their community schools visions. So I'll just post a little bit about that in the chat. But thanks, Ellie.
Great. Anybody else have anything that they want to share that could be a resource to others, or that might be a shared training opportunity, or something that is just a general announcement? And you can continue to give your updates, or at this point you could ask any questions you might have. Yeah, we see in the chat. Thank you, Jennifer, for dropping that link. While we are waiting for the folks from the consortia, I'm actually going to ask Asani to walk you through so that we can give them the full time that because they actually probably might need a little bit more than even 30 minutes. That I want to walk you through all the ways to get connected. So Asani.
So yes, you can find MD4CS on our socials. Facebook and Twitter would be at MD4CS. You can go on the mostnetwork.org site /MD4CS to look for us. You can on there you can find links to Google Docs and different meeting minutes and other resources that you might need to use or that you might want to look at to help you with your community school journey. We also have a newsletter that comes out once or twice a month, trying to make it twice a month. The bit.ly, I'll put that in the chat, is bit.ly/MD4CS sign up. So you can sign up on that to get our our newsletter in your email boxes, or you can email if the bit.ly does not work for you for some reason, because we've been having a little bit of a trouble. You can also email me and I'll put that in the chat as well.
Great, thank you. And so I am excited. I have seen that our folks from the consortium have started to join, and I'm going to pass it over to them in a minute, but just wanted to remind you all that I am looking for steering committee members. It looks like if you are interested in that legislative group, please email me. And then we also will be, as we mentioned at the outset, following up on the full service community school grant opportunity with some technical assistance things coming. So all of that will be in those newsletters that Asani talked about, and things that we email out to the group. And so hope you will join us for that. And with that, I haven't seen Mark yet, but I did see Lori Ann join us. So I am going to just say, before I pass this over to them, I thought this was a really important piece of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, Pillar 4, for folks who are working to implement community schools, whether you're a community school coordinator or you're an administrator at a school district, to understand, because with your job of bringing in supports that meet the needs of your schools, the Consortium on Coordinated Community Supports is going to be a huge resource to you as it rolls out its hub and spoke model, and as it supports and builds the capacity of additional service providers. So I'm going to pass it over to them. This is something I'm very excited about. It's also something I feel like a lot of people don't know the full details on. And it was kind of a part of the legislation that maybe doesn't get as much attention as it deserves. So I'm happy that we can share and you guys can hear more about it and get your questions answered. So Lorianne, can I have you come on? Do you want to share slides and I will stop sharing?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. You should have that capacity because I've made you a co-host.
Great. Great. Okay, can you see my slides?
We can.
Okay. All right, well, first of all, thank you so much. Oh, you can't see my video. Here we go. Hi. Okay. Thank you so much for inviting us, Ellie. This is a group we've really been wanting to connect with, so this is perfect. Thank you for making the connection. Mark will be joining us a little bit late. He got called away for just something at the last minute. My colleague Jen is on the line. Maybe Jen would like to say hello.
Hi, my name is Jen Clatterbuck. I am the commission administrator. So I'm the linchpin between the three programs that the commission is running.
That's right. She really does everything. So you'll see her everywhere, and Jen does everything. So my name is Lorianne. I'm policy analyst with the commission. I started right before COVID. I started to work on school-based health center council, and I think I see Kelly Kessler maybe on the call. So Kelly and I worked together in that life. More recently, the commission has been very involved in staffing the consortium, and so that is the main thing that I'm working on these days. So greetings from Mark, and he'll join us in a minute. So here are the objectives for the presentation today. We want to talk about the statutory objectives of the consortium, where it came from in the blueprint, talk about how we want to use the collective impact model to establish community support partnerships. We want to talk about our upcoming grant opportunities, which I think will be of key interest. And then I just want to make sure we're clear about how it interrelates with the community schools piece. So those are our objectives. In terms of the legislative background, the consortium was added as an amendment to the blueprint bill in 2020. It wasn't in the Kerwin Commission report. This was a priority of Senate leadership and the House leadership. They really wanted to do more to address student behavioral health. They assigned this project to the Maryland Community Health Resources Commission. So we're a grant-making body. I'll talk more about the commission in a minute. So the consortium is a new state agency specifically for this purpose. We have like 12 statutory goals, but what we really kind of focus on as our North Star, expanding access to student behavioral health and wraparound services. In 2022, we got our chair, former delegate David Rudolph. He's an educator, and he was obviously a delegate. And written into the blueprint bill is that the National Center for School Mental Health shall provide technical assistance. If y'all don't know them, they're fantastic. We really lean on them for quite a lot, and they are going to continue to provide technical assistance both to us and to the grantees moving forward. The consortium has 24 members, soon to be 25, a couple vacancies. I won't read through this whole list, but it's a great group. Represents education, represents behavioral health, folks from all across the state, just a really diverse and very knowledgeable community of folks. We've been meeting pretty much monthly in person. Our next meeting will be on May 9th. Those meetings are open to the public, so we'd be happy to extend that invitation to anyone on this call. And you can find more information on our website, which I'll give you at the end. So the consortium's divided its work into 4 subcommittees. We have a framework design and RFP subcommittee. You can see that's chaired by the state superintendent, as well as Dr. Sadia McKeith, who is a member of the commission. Our second subcommittee is data collection and analysis, Dr. Larry Epp. Outreach and community engagement, Tammy Fraley is on the Board of Education for Allegheny County. And then best practices, we have Dr. Campo from Kennedy Krieger and Dr. Jarek Simmons, who's a superintendent from Caroline County. So again, really trying to have both health and education perspectives. So these are the 4 goals of the consortium. We really wanted to be able to define what success looks like, what are we trying to do, and make sure these are measurable goals. So we have sort of associated metrics that go along with each of these. But so what we're really trying to do, number 1, is expand access to high quality, that's important, high quality behavioral health and related services for students and their families. Number 2, improve student well-being and readiness to learn. And we really want to measure that at the individual student level. Are we making a difference? As well as looking at bigger picture things. Youth risk behavior survey. Are we moving the needle? Are we improving student well-being? Number 3, foster positive classroom environments. That's something that was specifically in the bill, and I have a feeling the folks on this call have some expertise on that topic. And 4th is really looking at sustainability. We're trying to really maximize Medicaid, get that federal match for the programming that we're doing. Commercial insurance and other sources of funding. So these are our goals, and we are going to measure these things. And of course, we'll ask our grantees to give us the data to help us measure that we're making progress in all these areas. Here's our org chart. We've got the consortium on the one hand. The consortium is really designing the overall program. Then we have the CHRC. We're providing staff support, and then the CHRC will be the ones ultimately issuing the RFP, the funding, and then doing all the contracts with the National Center, and of course with the grantees. So I've got the National Center in the org chart. Again, they're providing assistance to the CHRC and the consortium even now, and they will also provide assistance to the grantees. The grantees are those partnerships that you see at the bottom that will be formed. I'll talk about those in a minute. But that's our org chart. That's how it all fits together. So people who are thinking about RFPs will be looking for an RFP from the CHRC that was really designed by the consortium. So this is a little more about the Maryland Community Health Resources Commission. It was created by the General Assembly in 2005 to really expand access to healthcare for underserved communities. As the years go by, additional responsibilities have been added to the CHRC. So number 4 is the Council on Advancement of School-Based Health Centers. That's something I've worked on quite a bit. More recently, we've been asked to implement the Maryland Health Equity Resource Act. And so these are a special health equity grant program that's currently being implemented. And we're looking at another RFP under that act, Jen, in October. So that's coming out. That's place-based health equity grants. And then number 6, again, added to our plate was the consortium. So through the, this is a slide where Mark really shines, through the CHRC, we've really got to know folks all across the state, in all the local communities, and really working with underserved communities. And so I think that dovetails really nicely with a lot of the things that we're trying to do in the consortium. So we started looking at the legislative language and how to really operationalize what is being asked of the consortium through the blueprint. So on the right side, you see some of this language that I've pulled from the bill. You know, partnerships need to be formed. They need to serve a specific area. And there's a whole list in the bill of different kinds of organizations and people who should be part of partnerships. So these are really looking to be holistic, looking at the whole student, ensuring that the community is involved, families are involved, holistic and coordinated, behavioral health and wraparound, which is something we've been talking a lot about. Now, wraparound looks a little different for the consortium than it does for community schools, and we could talk about that a little bit too. Finally, in the bill, it talks about grants may include partnership coordinators and include reasonable administrative costs. So with that language, then you can see sort of the visual that we produced on the left side. We think what we're being asked to do is create these partnerships that are a place-based partnership that serve the students' holistic needs within that geographic area. We think there will be a hub, and we think there will be multiple spoke organizations. I think a lot of this maybe looks a little bit like how a community school operates, and a hub would be a much bigger version of that. And we'll talk about hubs in a minute. So again, the partnership, which is a term in the blueprint bill, the partnership will consist of the hub, or the backbone for people who like the collective impact model, and the spokes. And together, the backbone and the spokes comprise the partnership. We also think there's a really crucial role for schools. These are programs in school buildings involving school children. The schools are just really of paramount importance. They need to be deeply involved in the partnership and need to interact with both the hubs and the spokes. So that's the model of where we want to get to, a number of partnerships all across the state. Where we see ourselves in 2023 is, I don't need to tell this group, there's a behavioral health crisis facing our kids. So we want to do two things this year. We want to start to build out that framework through capacity building for the organizations that will serve as hubs. But at the same time, we just need to get funding out now for kids. So we really see the majority of that funding in this first RFP going to spokes who will be providing those services in schools. In the future, in the next RFP and beyond, we want to be funding the partnerships as a whole, and then the hubs will work with the spokes as their sub-grantees. But for this year, we don't have that network yet. So we want to build that network even while we're pushing funding out directly for services. And then you'll see at the bottom, we talk about funds must be supplemental to and may not supplant existing sources of funding. And I think that's important when we look at community schools too. So we're applying that across the board, but that I think has particular meaning for community schools that have concentration of poverty grants. So if anybody has any questions, I'll take questions, or I'll just keep going, whatever you all prefer. All right, I'll keep going.
I'm sorry. So when you're talking about in the future that funds will go to the hubs, are you talking about the funds would go to the schools? So I'm confused. I'm sorry.
Right, that's okay. That's okay. So what we see is, and we'll have slides that talk about this a bit more. As we talked about what a partnership looks like, probably it's at the jurisdiction level. And it is, the hub is not the school. The hub is an organization that works very closely with the school. And obviously the services have to be coordinated with and through the school, but the hub is not the school. So that's why I say it's sort of like the community service, the community schools model, but like on a jurisdiction level. We have a coordinating hub and then spokes that serve the various schools within that jurisdiction. But thank you for the question.
There was something in the chat, Lorianne, asking if schools were spokes.
Right. So schools also will not be spokes. So the schools, again, host the services, but the spokes are a lot of those service providers, our behavioral health service providers, and then things like maybe after school programs, community-based organizations doing behavioral health type things. So the schools will not be the spokes, and the schools will not be the hubs, but they are very important to the initiative.
And then Ellie had a question as well. Just behavioral health, or will other health issues be addressed?
So we discussed this in a lot of detail at the consortium, and the consortium is focused on behavioral health. There's also an acknowledgement that a student's needs, even their behavioral health needs, are affected by many other things going on in that student's life. So consortium funding certainly could be used to navigate to all these other services, to navigate to access for health insurance, navigate to health insurance, to health services. But consortium funds would not be used for those other somatic health pieces directly. But we definitely want to make sure consortium grant dollars are connecting folks to all those services.
Is there an example of a hub? Do you have?
Well, we don't have a hub yet. This is why we need a couple of years to build something up. But you could imagine, for example, a county. For example, we've heard some interest in the behavioral health authorities in playing this role. So perhaps the behavioral health authority would hire, and we would provide funding for this, 1 or 2 staff people who are going to run the hub and be in charge of this partnership. And then they would have contracts with, let's say, a dozen providers of various services, and they would have an MOU with the school, and they would coordinate, that's very important, coordinate which providers are serving which schools. They're going to use data to do that. They're going to receive a lot of training and technical assistance from us to do that.
Thank you.
Great. I see Callie's raised her hand.
Hi, Lorianne, it's Kelly.
Hi, nice to see you.
Good to see you virtually again. So a question I would have is, so if a school system, really has kind of internally a group that is managing these connections to behavioral health providers by various things, would that then potentially constitute the type of hub? Like, for example, in Howard County, we are working where we have a variety of providers who are actually providing direct services in the school and connecting to care. Is that the type of thing that you would be looking for, or is that different from this opportunity?
So, and thank you for that question. And I read all the implementation reports this week. So it's exciting to see what's going on in so many of these school districts. What we're talking about with the consortium it would not be the school. It would not be the LEA serving in that hub role. But we also don't want to dismantle the things that are working really well. So that is something that we're working through, what that will look like eventually. But the model of the consortium, it would not, the LEA would not be able to say we're doing this hub role. We're going to be the hub. At least that's where we are for this RFP.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, maybe I'll show a few more slides, and then I think we might preempt some questions, and then we can get back to it at the end. But thank you. I appreciate the interaction. Here's our timeline. Here's what we're looking at. Outreach, we're doing that right now. We're looking to release the first RFP probably the beginning of June. We want to give folks maybe 6 to 8 weeks to apply for that and provide some support as they're trying to work through these applications. Make the awards and really try to get grant funding out as soon as possible, get services into schools, ideally during this first semester of the upcoming school year. So here's examples of the kind of services that we want to expand access to. The individual, group, and family therapy, wraparound, and navigation to some of the other services. Substance use services, we've heard that that's a void in a lot of our schools. Support for families, again, serving not just the student, but the family. I think we're taking a page from the book of community schools in that regard. Crisis planning, telehealth, and then I'd be remiss not to discuss the preventative work and the things that happen maybe at the school-wide level. We are looking for providers to bill Medicaid whenever they can. As part of our legislative mandate is to really maximize those other sources of funding so we can really leverage the funds that are available, and then use the grant dollars to fill in the gaps of things that Medicaid might not cover. This next slide goes a little bit in the weeds, but these are examples of some of the things that maybe Medicaid wouldn't cover that we could use grant funds for. I'll send the slides out after this, so we don't need to go through all of these. But then again, examples of things that could be funded through the grants that are not reimbursable by Medicaid. And of course, many of our students, right, are not Medicaid covered. So grant funding absolutely would be available for that population. So here's what we were talking about, right? Who could be a hub? So in a lot of cases, we're hearing that local behavioral health authorities feel that they're well positioned to be hubs. We're hearing local management boards say the same thing, that they have similar capacities, but we're pretty open on that. The blueprint legislation, interestingly, really did not say, you know, the LEAs should be given this funding to form partnerships, or the local behavioral health authorities should be given this money to do partnerships. So we think they're looking for something a little bit different model. So we, rather than say who can be a hub, what we focused on, what does a hub need to be able to do? And we think that's 3 things. We think it's coordinate the delivery of the services. We think they have a fiduciary role. Again, we want to be ultimately awarding grants to the hubs. They distribute it to the spokes as subgrantees. And then, of course, the data collection role, really important to collect that data, report the data to us, but also act on the data, right? Make decisions based on the data. So those are the things that we see a hub doing. And then here was the question we were talking about earlier. How many hubs? Probably, as we've done this outreach, it feels like it's going to be about 1 per jurisdiction. Again, the legislation didn't specify, and if 2 jurisdictions wanted to work together and have a regional hub, great. If a place like, say, Montgomery County said this, we want to split this work into 2 or 3 different partnerships, that would be, here's Mark. That would also be something that could be considered. We've been hearing just that the jurisdiction level, because, you know, so 1 school district per jurisdiction, there's just a lot of synergy there, that may make the most sense. To the last point, hubs need to work very closely with the LEA. They need a letter of support, but we're not looking for a generic letter of support. We're looking for genuine collaboration in developing the proposal and developing the program. So that is again, the school is integral to the effort. So I think, oh, here, I have 2 more slides. First of all, Mark just joined us. Mark, do you want to say hello?
Hey, everybody. Nice to meet some new folks, and I think I see some folks I've already got to know. Nice to see you again, Kelly. Real looking forward to getting to know you guys. Well, maybe we can sort of talk more once we get to the slides. Sorry to be late.
Great, thanks. So I'll just do these last couple of slides to really clarify the role of the school. So this, as we said, the school is not going to be the hub. The school's not going to be the spoke. The school's not going to be that direct recipient of the grant funding. But this, to put a finer point on it, the schools can't use the grant dollars to hire additional staff, but the vision here is to bring these community folks into the school. Grant dollars could be used to train school staff. We've talked a little bit about that collaboration and cooperation. I'm going to skip to the next slide because I think this is really the key one for this group here. So we see the consortium funding really as these kinds of services as being available to all schools, community schools among them, but not just limited to community schools. Again, the schools and the school districts would not receive that direct funding. So the spokes in applying for grants will need to demonstrate need. And so one of the ways we feel they can do that is that this analysis has already been done, right? So we will give them a list of the community schools. And so they will be able to say, here are schools that have already been identified as having great need. And that would be one of the considerations in grant funding. Of course, they'll need to demonstrate how they're coordinating with the services that are already going on in the community schools. Or expanding the services that are already in the community schools. But we know that those are areas where there's great need. At the same time, our bullet on the top right, we know there are other sources of funding coming in for community schools, those concentration of poverty grants and whatnot. And so applicants will really need to clearly differentiate how consortium funds are supplemental to those and are not replacing those funds, and then how the consortium grant funds will allow an expansion of these services. So for a community school, we're not looking to replace or shift money around. We're really looking to add on to the things that are happening. And then to my final point, the consortium is working right now on a definition of wraparound, but we've looked at the definition of wraparound for community schools, excuse me, and where the consortium is going to be is a little narrower. We're looking at wraparound for kids with really identified needs. And the services that we're looking at for wraparound are much closer to the behavioral health piece, the behavioral health side than some of the community school services that are listed as wraparound for community schools. Again, we would want to navigate kids and families to those kinds of services, but the consortium is the things that it will fund directly are going to be closer to the behavioral health side of the house. So I'm just going to show you my last slide and then I'll take this down. Here's our contact information and our website. At the bottom is a link to our sorry, I can't see them, our distribution list. So we would encourage folks who are interested to sign up, and then you will make sure that you get the RFP and any other salient information as it comes out.
And I dropped that information in the chat, not for the mailing list, but you can click right on the consortium homepage to. Okay.
Perfect. So I'll pull down our slides. Thank you, Jen. And then Mark and I are available for questions. And Mark may want to say a few words first.
Oh, it's just very, very nice. I recognize you, Ellie. Thank you very much for the invitation. Look at that smile. I need to smile today. It's been a long day. Yep, great. We're not going to go around and introduce ourselves, so that's probably already happened, but just really, really honored that the legislature asked us to take on this work. And I know there's a lot of work the AIB has to keep an eye on, if that's a hat that you have as well, Ellie. So just really want to work with as many folks across the state to make them aware of this phenomenal, unprecedented funding opportunity to address behavioral health services statewide. A lot of work, a lot of responsibility for those of us like Spider-Man, and we need as many people to help us get out the word. So if you can help us do that, I imagine Lorianne probably gave everybody a sense of the timeline for the RFP. Lot to do, and we're really trying to do our best to have as many grants awarded this fall, such that there's new and expanded programming in as many schools as possible. So something tells me that this group can help us do that. And that would be one thing. And then the second thing is, if there policy is not the right word, but if they're, that's the word I want to use here, content things that you guys want to weigh in on in terms of, you know, the nature of the services that we want to fund and so forth. You know, all of us are in this together. So thanks again for inviting us to present today. And we have a lot of work to do in the future, and we'd like to count on you guys to help us do that. So that's my remarks, Lorianne. Thank you for that.
Great.
Happy to respond to questions now.
I see there are a couple of questions in the chat. I know we're going over a little bit of time, but if folks can hang on, and if Lorianne and you, Mark, you can hang on for a few minutes, we'll take the questions we can take. And you guys do now have all the contact information for the consortium and for us if you need to follow up. We will send out the recording of this event and the PowerPoints that are shared with us. So those will also be resources. So I see a couple in the chat, and then I also see Cheryl has her hand up.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. That presentation was amazing. It was so helpful. I sit on the local management board here in St. Mary's County, and you know, different members of the board have gotten different information, and wow, did you answer a lot of questions with your presentation. So I'm excited that I can then take that back to the board. And I think maybe one of our board members had reached out as well, maybe for a direct presentation. But I just want to make a statement, if I can, just to kind of clarify in my head what I think I heard. So for the hub, like the local management boards or behavioral health authorities, folks of that nature could be a hub and apply for grant funding on behalf of community behavioral health agencies, which would be the spokes that would ultimately provide services for students in our schools. Is that kind of the idea of it?
I would say, yes, that's where we want to get to.
Okay.
Understanding that this year, that's not practical yet. So this year, the funding would go directly to the spokes. We'll have to work with folks on the coordination piece. But in the future, that's exactly where we want to be.
So this year, it would be the community agencies that would be applying for the funding?
So the agencies would apply for funding, and we're talking about like provider groups, right?
Yep, yes.
So they would be applying for funding as spokes. And at the same time, what we would want is some consensus about who ultimately should play that hub role, because we want to start building a relationship with them, training them, building out that model. So we're going to have two different kinds of grants in this first year.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to put a finer point on that, I see your, I know Lorianne made this point earlier, but remember I wasn't here. So, but I know this point has been made. The coordination with the school district is really important. So I don't know if there's somebody from a school district perspective here. I think this is a coalition, so it's probably a diverse array of folks here. But when we go out and we do jurisdiction specific presentations, right? Like the Howard County one or the Baltimore City one or wherever it is, we're really encouraging folks to have the superintendent there or get on the superintendent's calendar and really have this genuine, at the very beginning, partnership where people that might want to be a hub, whether it's an LMB or a behavioral health authority, the service providers, and the school district come together and they say, okay, this is the plan for St. Mary's County. We got to do these 3 or 5 things right now. And that's why, you know, that those are the greatest unmet behavioral health needs for our students in St. Mary's, since you said you're from St. Mary's County, in St. Mary's County.
Yep.
And I kind of feel like you may know what those are already.
Mm-hmm.
Like the superintendent probably knows what they are. And so then you guys all put your heads together and you work with your service providers, or maybe you recruit some new ones.
Right.
For that first track of the RFP that Lorianne would have talked about, the spoke or service track. And those would probably be 2-year grants, because we got to get services out now. We can't be now, you know, we got to have a thoughtful sense of urgency.
Right.
But while that's happening, the service is going out. We also want to be building the infrastructure in the communities to have the hub. And then ultimately that's going to become, as the legislature put it in the bill, a community support partnership, which you guys saw that favorite slide I love. You know, community support partner is 2 parts, you know, the hub or backbone organization, and then the service providers. And then that becomes, if you will, a milieu of services that go out to St. Mary's County. And then ultimately, maybe in about 2 years, as Lorianne said, there's a single grant that goes to the St. Mary's Community Support Partnership.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
We appreciate your appreciation, as the expression goes.
So will there be a hub in every county is one of the questions.
Yeah, we get that a lot. So the legislature tasked us with creating a statewide framework for increased access to behavioral health and wraparound services. And so ultimately, we have to be providing services and other things statewide. So if possible, yeah, we kind of feel like there's about one hub or one community support partnership in every jurisdiction of the state. But you know, we need to be prepared for different scenarios to meet communities, as the expression goes, where they are. So it might be in this first RFP that not all 24 jurisdictions have a hub. It might be that maybe a larger jurisdiction has more than one. Those are some of the details, Ellie, that we're kind of working out. And what has been suggested to us by a number of folks, including the superintendent, is that we really need to go out there. The word he uses is hustle. Like, we have to get out to as many communities as possible and really get the information out there and get these conversations started. And I'll say I've done probably about a half dozen or so jurisdiction specific meetings, and to their credit, they were already kind of thinking about these kinds of things. And they might not be calling it collective impact, but they were already thinking about these kinds of things. And so it sort of comes at that moment when everyone knows, look, we got to do something about behavioral health, right? It's time, it's way past time. And we have to kind of provide the services, but we also have to set up this statewide framework and have the infrastructure to deliver the services and then track outcomes, right? Because that's important. We got to show the legislature that we're doing our jobs. So that's what we're trying to do, Ellie. We get that question a lot.
So since you're going to provide a list of community schools to folks, should community school coordinators and community school folks at the district level be prepared that folks are going to be reaching out and have some things back pocket ready to share with these folks that might be applying?
Yes, please.
It looks like you have an invitation from Kelly to come to Howard County to talk to their Community Mental Health Advisory Council. So you might want to follow up with her.
Only if we get to spend time with Kelly.
It'll be good to catch up. Yes, I'm actually exchanging contact with Lorianne as we speak.
And is it possible that some of this money, although not going directly to the school, could potentially hire people that could be full-time in a school?
I don't think so. I think that would probably be unlikely. I think what we do anticipate happening is, Lorianne talked about the 2 different tracks of service grants, I'm sure. So one of those tracks will have significant technical assistance and training provided by the National Center, School Mental Health. And so to the extent that there's trainings provided by the National Center to grantees, we would encourage the grantees where possible or applicable to invite school staff. But we don't anticipate, there's other stuff in the blueprint, you know better than me, Ellie, that has the school districts hiring and doing various things. We don't anticipate that this funding will largely be used to hire new employees of schools. Lorianne, is that how you see it?
I think that's right. I mean, I could see a situation where there's sort of a contractual relationship. So let's say a social worker is going to spend all their time in the school through a contractual relationship, but that person would not be hired by the school directly. It wouldn't change. We hear a lot about the ratios, right? This funding won't affect the ratio of, school counselors to students or social workers to students.
And I think that covers all the questions we had in the chat. We're about 10 minutes over. So if anybody has one last burning thing that they want to ask before we sign off, I would say this is the moment. Seize the day. Services would be available to all students, not just Medicaid eligible students.
Yes, definitely. Yep.
Well, I want to really thank you both and Jen for coming today and doing this presentation. I know that presentation has been helpful to me, that when I saw it, when you did it for the Pillar 4 Advisory Board. And I keep thinking about how this connects to both our community school and after school worlds. So I'm going to continue to ask those questions too to you guys and direct people to sign up for your notifications and visit your website and get educated. I want to thank everybody who attended today. We've already gotten a lot of emails in my inbox to follow up on things that we asked for participation in. So that's super exciting. And, you know, I will see many of you, I hope, in Philadelphia for the National Community Schools Conference and Family Engagement Conference. It's going to be, you know, Maryland's going to show up. So don't forget that Thursday of that conference, we're going to all have to represent in some way our state or our local initiatives. So think about when you're packing for Philly, what you're going to do for that. And for now, I think that's it for today. A great meeting and appreciate all of you and all the hard work you're doing to serve young people in Maryland in the best possible ways.
Thank you.
Thanks.